most people think that crypto crimes happen only online. However, the fact is criminals are now targeting people in real life. When I saw that one of the co-founders of Ledger, one of the biggest, if not the biggest crypto hardware wallet in the world, was recently kidnapped in France from his home, I mean, for me, that was really worrying. And not only that, apparently they chopped off one of his fingers, or at least mutilated his hands, and his wife was abducted as well. Luckily, shortly after, those kidnappers were caught. But for me, honestly, it was really crazy when I read that story, because I thought, oh my God, like such a prominent person. But guess what? Especially those prominent people are being targeted, right? Because the criminals know that this person probably has a lot of crypto, right? Naturally, those people working in the crypto space, they have a lot of security measures in place and they know what they're doing. However, one mistake that they did do online, I think it was either him or his wife, did at some stage post a picture of their new home in France online. And guess what? These days, it's very easy to identify where that is. And obviously, criminals use that, right? So you have to be very mindful of what you put out there online. So that's one thing to keep in mind. But when you think that's an isolated case, you can go over here on GitHub. I'll leave the link in the description down below, where you'll find all the known physical attacks based on different news sources that happened and occurred starting as early back as 2014. So obviously back then it was very few, right? 2014 you see here, 2015. So not that many. But the further we go down and obviously the higher the value of Bitcoin and crypto in general increased, you start seeing that number go up exponentially. More and more you see in 1 year alone. And now if I go down all the way over here, 2025, we already have a couple of things happening in 2025 alone, right? In 2024, how many things have happened? And you see all of them: CEO kidnapped, tourist robbed, wife of crypto influencer who bragged about wealth online kidnapped by 3 men. So, I mean, so many things happening. Obviously, the one I was just speaking about here, Ledger co-founder and wife kidnapped. Absolutely scary when you read about this. And these are the documented case of well-known people, right? How many cases that have not documented and didn't make it to the news are there? Probably way more even. So you can really see that in addition to the digital risk that you naturally have with any kind of money that you have online, right? Especially cryptocurrency, and that's still a real danger. The physical risks should not be neglected and actually becoming more and more. And I think we're going to see a major rise of that, because in the past people would break in to steal some jewelry, which can be a couple of thousands. But if you break into someone's house and get hold of their crypto holding, you can very easily run away, right? If you steal gold, it's very difficult to transport gold into your car. But if you have someone's seed phrase, you can run away and just withdraw the crypto moments later while you're already in the car and then kind of, disappear from there. So it's really, really attractive in a way for criminals. And that puts so much more risk for us, for anyone who has cryptocurrency in a significant way. And why it's so attractive for people to steal cryptocurrency? Well, first of all, as I mentioned, it's very portable, right? It's very easy to transport anywhere. Even if police stops you, in case you stole a hardware wallet, you can easily hide it in your car, on your body somewhere, right? It's very difficult to actually find. Secondly, it's very anonymous, right? You can easily send it across different exchanges to wallets and try to hide your traces. Now, technically, there are crypto forensics that can find that eventually, but it makes it much more difficult. So yeah, it's another benefit for criminals in a way. And lastly, there's no third-party recovery. There's nobody that you can call and say, well, my crypto has been stolen, right? If somebody drained your bank account, well, you could reach out to the bank and they could help you to do the forensics and so on. But if you had your money on a crypto exchange and hardware wallet and somebody had access and drained it, there's not much they can do about, right? That would then go to the police, and let's be honest, usually they're not very digitally advanced in many ways, so it would be very difficult for them to recover that. So yeah, that's another big risk for crypto users that they're exposed to. Now, what these kind of attacks are called are $5 wrench attack. Basically, you buy a wrench, you break into someone's home to threaten to access physical violence against that person to get out their seed phrase or the passphrase to their ledger device or any kind of other physical hardware device that they're using. And of course, naturally, people are threatened, right? They want to preserve their lives, so they end up giving out either the seed phrase or the passcode to the ledger, and then they can literally in a second later drain the accounts fully and run off, and they will be hard to find. So that's the real risk. So the question is, of course, what can we do to protect ourselves against such risks? Now, the first one is pretty straightforward and common sense, but that's not to flaunt your wealth online. Don't showcase, all your Rolex collections and how much money you have, or even how much crypto you have, right? I see some people online, crypto influencers, what have you, taking screenshots of their crypto wallets and all the various coins they have. And naturally, that attracts potentially criminals who want to go after you to get that money from you, right? So that's really something to keep in mind. And even for myself, a good reminder, right? Because I usually do a monthly portfolio update and have done so for a while. But eventually, I might consider stopping that, because as the portfolio grows, right, you definitely become more of a target. Now, being right now in the UAE, I must say I feel very safe and very comfortable with that. But yeah, sometimes I am in Europe, and obviously there, safety and security can be a little bit different than it is over here. So at some stage, I would probably have to stop that because yes, you're exposing yourself to additional risk. And more importantly, don't necessarily showcase all your private life, where you live, where you stay, and so forth, because then they know every single thing. They can easily piece it together and know exactly when and where you are. So yeah, these are things to consider. Even things like running, right? I have my Strava where I sync all my runs, but I consciously hide my running track because otherwise people could easily follow that, know what time I'm running usually, and just wait in the bushes and pull me out over there, right? So that's a risk I don't want to expose myself to. So be very mindful of the things you do put online. Obviously, we live in a digital world. I really believe in putting yourself out there, but really focus mostly on the thing that add value to educate and help others rather than purely your personal life, because that definitely exposes you more, and that would make it much easier for criminals to know where you are, when you are, and how much they could potentially get from you. The second point to protect yourself is to keep your seed phrase safe and not in your home. The same with your hardware wallet. Ideally, you want to keep it in different places. So even if, God forbid, somebody was to break into your house, you literally would not have that device with you physically, right? So they can do whatever you want. I mean, obviously, at some stage, they would let go because obviously they want to get the value out of you. There's no point of them to just do harm to you. So at some stage, you would say, well, it is actually in another location. You would either have to fly there in the worst case scenario for them. In this case, it wouldn't be attractive for them. They would just take any valuables you have in your house, which is still painful, but better than if you have significant crypto holdings on your device. So that would just delay the whole process. So ideally, you don't want to have all your wealth with you. If you keep the device in your home as well as the sheet of paper with your 24-word seed phrase in the same place, it's really not ideal. And I also do the same. I do keep my devices and seed phrase in different places. So that way I really protect myself. Now, the third point is to actually use a multi-sig wallet. So even in case you were to keep your devices with you, which a lot of people want to have, right? Out of convenience, right? If you keep it in another country and you yourself need to approve a transaction, it can be a bit cumbersome, right? To have to fly there and get the device to approve. So I get it that out of convenience you want to keep it. So then there's something called multi-signature, where, for example, you will have 3 parties who have parts of your seed phrase, and at least 2 out of the 3 parties need to approve a transaction. Meaning you would have one part of the party, right, to approve a transaction. That's in your house. That's great. And then you would have one device in another place, for example, where you can't easily go to, in another city, another country even. And the third party could be an online institution, for example, like, for example, Casa or Unchained Capital, and more players are emerging that have the third puzzle of the equation, so to say, that also need to approve. So basically, even if somebody forced the code or seed phrase out of you, they could not approve a transaction and withdraw your crypto. You would need to have a second party approve the transaction also. So that means they would have to fly to the other place where the second hardware wallet is, or they would also have to hack in your online banking account and approve that transaction as well. And they would have another way to validate through Face ID and other things. So it would just make things even more complicated for them. So that might be yet another security measure to really think about, especially as your portfolio starts growing. That might be a little bit overkill if your portfolio is $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, euros, whatever. But if you start having 5, 6, 7, 10 Bitcoins at home and eventually the value keeps on increasing, that's something to potentially really think about. And that brings me to the next point, and that's obviously what I always say: never keep all your funds on a crypto exchange, because from there it's very, very easy to withdraw all the money without you really being able to stop that, right? Because they could just force you to log into your account and make a transfer to their account, and that's it. There's nothing you can do about it, and the money is gone. And that's why, for example, it's much better to have a multi-sig approval process, or, as I mentioned, to keep your hardware wallet in different places and your seed phrase as well. So that's much more secure than leaving all your funds on the exchange, because that's very easily and quickly drained from you. And the last point, and probably one of my favorite, is to have a decoy wallet on your hardware wallet, which many hardware wallets actually offer these days. They also call it the 25th word, because in most cases, you're going to be having a 24-word seed phrase. And that's protected with a PIN, right? So usually when you have, for example, a ledger, you set up a PIN, and that protects your seed phrase and therefore obviously your wallet. So in this case, you would set up 2 separate wallets. One wallet with the 24-word seed phrase and one PIN, right? And that can hold, obviously a smaller amount. If it holds 10 euros or 10 pounds, it really wouldn't make sense if people know you're really wealthy. So I would say hold a couple of thousands, depending on the total value that you have, but a smaller amount. But in addition to that, you would have a second wallet, which basically would use the same 24 words that you had for the other wallet, but it would have one additional word or passphrase of your choice. and that can store the significant more amount of your crypto holdings. It would also have a different PIN. So if, God forbid, you were forced to enter your PIN, you would just have to memorize the second PIN that you set up, and that would be obviously the first PIN over here, and that would then access a much smaller wallet, which worst case, if they drain it, well, so be it, it will be gone, but they would not know that you have a secret PIN and 25th seed phrase, which is holding a much bigger amount, right? So once again, unless they know your total crypto holding, if you didn't launder it online, as I mentioned previously, that's a great way to protect yourself. That way they feel good if they drain 20, 30, 40, 50,000, worst case, but maybe you protect 500,000 or 1 million of cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, whatever it may be. So I think that's a very smart way to set it up. And most hardware wallets these days actually do allow you to do so. Now, I know this might not be the most fun topic to talk about, but I think it's super important that we take precautionary measures to avoid a potential scenario as such. And I hope some of those points can really help you to safeguard your crypto and protect yourself, most importantly, right? No money in the world is more important than your own life, but obviously we can take quite a few measures to really protect yourself from any of those potential crimes. I still love cryptocurrency. I'll continue buying it, but definitely myself, even after making this video, will take some more measures, even start looking into multi-signature approval, because I think that's really, really interesting. And definitely having a 25th seed phrase, I think is really, really important. I really recommend all of you to do it, because anyways, you have the ability on most hardware wallets these days, so might as well take advantage of it. Hope you found the video useful. If you did, give it a like, subscribe to the channel. Next up, check out this video over here. As always, thanks a lot for watching. Stay healthy, get wealthy, and I'll see you in the next one. Ciao.